going on?
Hey, Mush, brother, how you doing?
Uh, Tired,
Eh,
back hurts, but
sorry to hear that,
I'm
brother.
here. How's it going?
Doing all right. So, have you got this thing set up on Rumble as well yet?
I was just trying to do that, but it was telling me something about what did it say here? Something about the server URL. I was trying to figure that out real quick. I just kind of said screw it, kind of went with it.
Hmm.
So I'll have to figure out how to go about that.
Well, this may be one of those situations where what we may end up having to do is
We are
I
live now, right now, by the way.
oh we are.
Yeah.
Hold up, double check here.
I just put it up for YouTube as well because trying to play the game Vorax like I was the other day. I was trying to do that on Rumble, and me and Scuba and even Jasmine, we were all kind of like looking at it like,
I got to make
they want,
sure I've got the right. What is your what's your account name on Rumble again? I swear
hold
to
on
God,
one second.
I swear I thought I had the right channel that I was
Hang
following, but
on 1 second here.
sure.
Uh,
Sorry about the technical issues, folks. We're still trying to get this shite figured out.
it's Cortex Games and Reactions.
And reactions. Yeah, I'm pretty damn sure that's the one I've got followed.
It should have my icon on it.
Yeah, I'm following you. The last thing I've got on here is your playthrough demo
Like,
of Vorax.
yeah, that's what I was talking about. Like, I was trying to do that, and both Jasmine and Scuba kind of brought to my attention like it wasn't very user friendly when they were trying to comment, and even I was trying to look at it, and it didn't seem like it was doing so well.
No, and like the couple of times that Scuba has popped into my Storyteller's Corner show,
Hmm.
like she's been able to put up like one comment,
Yeah,
and then I don't know if she says anything else because nothing else ever pops up. And
yeah, it was the same deal with mine too.
she may just be being kind of soft spoken and not talking too much in the chat because I tend to blather on, and the Storyteller's Corner is mostly just me telling a story, sharing something I've written, or going on ad nauseum about something that I find particularly of note in the publishing realm or industry. So I don't check in with the chat as often as I probably should. But until we can get some technical issues squared away and figure out exactly
I
how
think
we're
we
going
might have to stick with YouTube for a bit until they figure it out.
right for the time being, and this is one of my very few, but my legitimate concerns and questions when it comes to Rumble is they do seem to have their hand kind of heavily placed on one side of the scale to promote larger channels that are or pre-established networks or channels or personalities to ensure that they drive traffic to the site. But for those of us who are independent, smaller users who are just trying to promote Rumble as an alternative so that we can have the artistic
Mhm.
freedom that is available there, they don't seem to realize that we're there yet, or they don't give a shit, or, and this is another strong possibility, they weren't prepared appropriately for the sheer volume of traffic, both on the viewer end and the content creator end.
Right.
A lot of people have become so sick and tired and dissatisfied with the restrictions and the vague, nebulous terms of service and community guidelines on places like YouTube and Twitch that they have tried to jump en masse over to Rumble. Well,
Mhm.
unfortunately, if you're not prepared to take on that many passengers, your ship's going to capsize. It's
Um,
going to happen.
I don't think it's so much even that as well. I mean, it definitely plays a big issue, but it's also, well, just gonna be honest. I mean, if you're gonna create such a platform and try to compete with something like YouTube or Twitch. You're being like a streamer, which is very big, is like interacting with like the people that are in your chat, talking to them, acknowledging they're there, all that stuff. And the chat, like, especially even on like an app side, I was trying to check it out just to see like if I could comment, and like every time I would comment, I would have to like, I would put a comment down, then I would scroll all the way back up to the stream. Versus like YouTube, it's all there, all in one go. Like I can push away the chat and just have the stream up, or I could have the chat and the stream up. But I could do it so conveniently and put it together. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. It's one of the unfortunate things that we we kind of discover despite our megrums with YouTube. That as of right now, it's sort of built in a user-friendly way at this juncture because they've been around for so long. They've been established for so long that they've been able to really narrow down and make this platform the most user-friendly, user-capable one to be on for the time being. Make no mistake about it, however, when Rumble finally gets their shit together and figures out how to do these things and make them more user friendly for the smaller or independent streamers, then they're going to be more prone to want to come on there. Now, I myself have been doing the Storyteller's Corner exclusively on Rumble for the last 13 installments. And I will continue to do that. It works fine for me because of the style of show that I do. It's a very different kind of setup. I'm not so much conversational during my live streams. I do check
what's
in.
up, 3 beer minimum? How's it going?
How you doing, brother? So yes, although we made a big to-do and a huzzah about, the last time was going to be our last show on YouTube, unfortunately, reality has hit us in the face like a ton of bricks. So for the time being, we have to be here again. That doesn't mean we're overjoyed about it, but the fact remains at least we have some kind of opportunity. And you know what? I'm still going to be I'm not going to be as hard to the ground, scorched earth as I was last week. Just because I don't want to get you in trouble and I don't want the show to completely go away and be unavailable. But that doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily soften exactly the messaging that I'm putting forward. I'm just going to couch it in terms that will be a little bit more palatable for the overlords at YouTube. And I call them overlords because that's what they attempt to be and what they want to be. So now that we are past the 8-minute mark that usually gets people slapped on the wrist by the great overlords of YouTube. Hey, YouTube, fuck you. We're past the 8-minute mark, so I feel a little bit more safe. I'm not going to make a habit of that, but yeah.
Yeah, just give me one moment here.
Sure thing. And don't worry, this show is not going to be just nothing but grumbling. We're going to get into the actual material that we're shifting to for our next set of deep dives.
Dude.
Oh, I like that we've kind of agreed upon that as like the title for this ongoing series, the deep dives.
Deep dives. Yep.
It's a good moniker.
For sure. I'm just bringing up the Mandela Catalogue.
Sure thing.
Since
yeah, I was gonna say it's a curious title too because I hate swimming. I do it, but I hate diving. So, just a little bit of wordplay.
Oh, so the Mandela Catalogue. Such a wild thing to get into, wild topic.
Yes, indeed it is. And do we want to dive in a little bit into the etymology at all of the Mandela effect and how that might correlate to the Mandela Catalogue?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna butcher it, but we definitely can. I mean, I'm aware what the Mandela effect is,
Right.
but you probably have much better wording than I do with it.
We'll just use a quick, brief synopsis of what the Mandela effect is. In sociological study and in psychology, the Mandela effect is a phenomenon which occurs wherein a large percentage or group of the population has a collective memory about some event or some piece of media from time past that it turns out in the future when they look back at that previous event or piece of media, they realize that they had remembered falsely, that some minor error had occurred in their collective memory to cause them to get the thing wrong. One of the most popular examples of this is the Berenstain Bears. There's this back and forth conversation about no, it was the Berenstain Bears, Stain, and then those who remember it being the Berenstain Bears, Stein. And there were a number of arguments and debates online, back and forth for quite some time about, well, which one was it? Until finally it was proven out that it was one spelling and not the other. And the folks who had been remembering it incorrectly kind of collectively said, well, what the hell? How can I remember it so clearly being it this way and not that way? This is the Mandela effect. Yes, Scuba, exactly. And how does the Mandela Catalogue tie into that? We will come to that as we go through an examination of the initial volume and the lore. And as well as some other handy-dandy notes, always prepared for later on in the show as we examine these things.
So just to give an even better example of what we're talking about, well, what he's talking about.
Visuals are always good.
Yep, hold on. Let's see here. Here we go. So you got the big comparison, like he was talking about, the Berenstain brother or the Berenstain Bears. And then you got the Berenstain Bears.
Yep. And I shit you not, for so long, I was with the Berenstain Bears. I was in the crowd that thought it was Steen, Stein. I had for years been so certain it was spelled Stein. I was damned certain of it. And the Pikachu thing, too, now that I'm looking at it, I could have sworn to God that he had a little black stripe at the end of his tail in the animated series.
No, actually, he didn't. I think that came later on, and then people got that confused because there were new variations of Pikachu that were coming out.
Right, and that's another area where the Mandela effect gets kind of wonky and a little bit strange, is because as a result of common misconception or misperception, later on, sometimes these things are altered in order to fall in line with the collective incorrect presumption.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird. Some companies, it's almost like they say, you know what? These folks have been wrong, but maybe it would be better if we did it that way. And so they make an alteration without pausing to think, well, we're really going to confuse and fuck some people up in the process of doing that. But why worry about the sociological or psychological damage of thousands of people? We have a bottom line to protect.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry, I can be a cynic.
When I think about a lot of it, though, I never really thought of it that way, to actually take a deep dive. No pun intended, but to actually literally sit down and do comparisons and well, why does this one say Oscar Mayer and this one says Oscar Mayer? You know what I mean? Or we were talking about Pikachu having the black stripe on his tail and originally not having it.
Now, I have to wonder how much of that may have been also. I know that Pokemon was originally like a comic book or a manga series. Is it possible that in the original manga he had the black stripe, and when they initially animated it, they forgot to put in the black stripe, and then later on went, oh yeah, people will remember the black stripe because it was in the manga initially. So we'll go back later in animations and adaptations further and change it back to the original depiction. Is that
Well,
possible?
they had the Pokemon movie where like Mewtwo had created like a whole army of clone like Pokemon, and then maybe it came around that time and there was the alterations of that Pikachu. I don't know,
Okay, okay, possible. I don't know
because
the
there
material
were
well
like
enough.
slight differences with the Pokemon,
Yeah, see, I don't know the material there well enough to see. Even as a
but
kid, I was
yeah.
never big enough into Pokemon to really give a shite.
Oh, I was a kid and it was like, yeah, it's on the TV, watch it or you're gonna get a whooping.
Strangely enough, however, when I was like 16 or 17, they came out with a robot version called Robopon, and I got really sucked into that. Just because you could, instead of like evolving your Robopon, you could
Appreciate
purchase
the love,
or
Jasmine.
scavenge after battles like spare parts to upgrade your robot. I thought it was kind of cool,
What's
but
up,
then
Miss
again,
Luck?
I'm a geek, so
No, you're good. Um, here we go. So, with all the introduction that we've made towards like the Mandela effect and possibly well, we haven't really talked much about the Mandela Catalogue. So, like the Mandela effect, there was like the alternate versions that we were just talking about. Well, picture that with people, like an alternate version of us.
it's not just what you read or what you watch; it's your neighbor.
Yeah,
Or is it?
or you. you know, there's a slight difference that's off about that. You know, that's that person, like whether it be facial like features to
Right, like,
something very very off.
yeah, where they like, hey, how you doing, Cortex? It's me. I swear to God.
Yeah,
Like, no, you look like an extra from a Jim Carrey film set.
pretty much.
Your
Yeah,
face,
you look
your
like
face will
something on
get stuck
Spy
that way.
Kids.
Don't make a face; it'll get stuck that way. Except these people are proof that maybe it did. And Jasmine, it's okay if you have to leave, hun. You can always come back
It's
and
all
watch the
good
replay later on.
for sure. All right, well, without further ado, I know we touched on this a little bit with the Mandela Catalog. Like I think it was Volume 1. We kind of introduced it, but we didn't go all the way through it.
No, we didn't.
So
That seems to be kind of our methodology. Is we touch lightly upon what we think might be a good series or set of lore to go into next, and then eventually we come into the full brunt of it. And so let us proceed with the Mandela Catalogue, Volume One.
here we go.
We are currently receiving countless reports of an unidentified hostile organism that we'll refer to as alternates. Until we have a complete understanding of the threat, it's important to stay home, lock all doors and windows, and have access to a loaded firearm or any ranged weapon at all times. You will know if an alternate exists solely based on their physical characteristics. If you see another person that looks identical to you, run away and hide. If you see a person that has a biologically impossible characteristic, run away and hide. If one manages to break into your home, refrain from any kind of communication or contact with the threat.
1 second. What's up, Chantella? How are you doing?
These intelligent life forms utilize elements of psychological warfare to take advantage of their victims. While we heavily discourage any form of contact or communication with an alternate, we make exceptions for attempts at executing them yourself.
So, you want to add anything to this, Byron?
Yes, just a small presentation style element that I very much appreciate and feel has been criminally overlooked when it comes to material like this. With the soundtrack that's playing in the background, you undoubtedly recognize the sort of patriotic themes being played in the background, but you'll notice that it is somewhat distorted. This is a presentation technique that was first utilized in Japanese horror cinema. It is what is referred to as ugly noise. It's when a well-known piece of audio presentation, when a well-known piece of music is played back or portrayed in such a fashion as to slow down and reduce or lower the register of the playback of the music in order to create a distorted feeling, to make one uneasy, to unsettle the psyche. This is part of developing atmosphere. Atmospheric horror and dread is a technique of horror narrative that really is exceptionally well done in Japanese cinema, and they were some of the premier pioneers of utilizing ugly noise as a compounding narrative technique in the audiovisual format. You can especially see this in films like Rangoon, Ju-on, the original The Grudge, and similar films.
Yep. Ju-on, The Grudge. Man, that screwed me up as a kid. No joke. I gotta ask though, since I brought that up, in the comments, like, tell us what movies that I guess like got to you when you were younger, or scared you when you were younger. Mine had definitely had to be the Grudge for sure.
Well, when you say screwed you up, like
Like, I ain't gonna lie, it kind of did for a little bit. I'm like, oh god, like just the simple fact of there's like a kill in the whole movie where there's this chick laying in the bed and she like hears noises coming towards her, so she runs to her bedroom, gets under the covers, and next thing you know, she feels something crawling up to her. She takes the covers off of her and looks under, and the Grudge happened to be there.
right.
I'm like, oh god.
Well, right. And some folks, are
Like, that
definitely
became a fear.
some folks are definitely impacted powerfully by films and shows and stories when they're younger. The effect can be somewhat different depending on what kind of person you are. I know for my part,
That and the noise.
I saw I saw my first dead body in real life when I was 7 years old, swimming in the Hudson
Damn.
River. I went diving in the Hudson to cool off because that's what you did in Brooklyn when back in the 80s, and swam down a couple of, about 30 seconds, and opened my eyes under the water. Not a good idea. And found myself
God.
looking at the half-rotted corpse of some unfortunate fellow. And I came up out of the water, spraying water, and going, "What the fuck?" And my oldest brother, Newt, was just like, "What? Did you see something down there?" It's like, "Yeah, I think a dead guy." And he's like, "This is Brooklyn. That happens." So, it affects everybody differently. Horror movies always possessed for me a certain fascination.
But
and
that's the
charm.
thing, though, is like movies like a lot of horror movies didn't really bother me, but for whatever reason, like The Grudge just hit me so much differently.
I think for me, it was probably a Nightmare on Elm Street when I was 8 years old.
Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, well, not because of Freddy himself, but the concept of you're asleep. There is literally nothing you can physically do to escape.
Mm.
And at 8 years old, I just remember thinking, if some maniac is coming at me with a knife or a hatchet or a chainsaw, at least I can run away. But Freddy is in your head.
Right.
How do you escape that? And that terrified me.
I think it was a combination of like her voice, like in The Grudge, like the whole noise, yeah, and her face, her being just pale white, and she's just got this like dead expression on her face. It's like there's just something because it's so off that it bothered me. You know what I mean? Like there wasn't any sort of emotion expressed. It's just a dead expression along with that noise.
Just the
right. That fucked me up for a bit.
But,
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Let us proceed onward.
But yeah, I mean, it don't bother me now. But like I said, when I was a kid, I was like, "Oh my god." Oh yeah, one more thing before we go. It even went as far as like when I was laying in bed, I would literally tuck the covers under me every time. No joke.
You're not getting into this cocoon, bitch. I'm Metapod.
Right. Pretty much. What was that? Yep. Oh, my bad. Hold on. Yeah, I forgot. I'm switching between screens here. So we were on Doppelganger. Nope. So, did anyone just realize that it skipped from type 1 to type 3?
I saw that, and I will admit that this is one of the few times where I watched some of these videos before coming on here today. I do believe, based on later material we will brush up against, that this was an intentional omission. I don't think it was done on behalf of the Department of Homeland or Department of Defense or the FBI or the authorities. I believe that there was an important bit of information that an alternate managed to clip out of the public awareness.
Right. But it also makes you wonder if this clip's an alternate itself. Gotta say, I love the whole VHS style.
Yeah, that's what's often referred to as analog horror.
Hey, it's Caesar. I hope it's not too late.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. What's up? Are you alright?
Yeah, it's not me, it's my mom. She's knocked out cold and I have no idea why. I'm on my way to the ER, but could you do me a favor?
Yeah, of course. What is it?
I just need you to come over and turn on the cameras we have set up. You know the ones that we installed after we were robbed?
Oh, yeah. Would you mind if I asked why?
Well, she screamed really loud right before I found her on the ground. I just...
Well, do you have your doors and windows locked? Like what the broadcast told us to do?
Yeah, that's the weird part. Maybe she saw something? I don't know.
Alright. I mean, it shouldn't be too bad. I'm just gonna switch them on and get out of there, though. You know how I feel about your house.
Yeah, that's fine. One last thing. Try to get a good view of
Okay. I'm willing to bet homeboy over here on the right is definitely an alternate.
Right. And that much distortion or unreality cannot go too long without bleeding through.
Right. Not to mention, he also said get a good view of the hallway. What's in the hallway?
Right. Sort of I want you to see something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Alright, I gotta go. I'm almost at the hospital. Thank you.
Like the intentions were bleeding right there.
Right. And that's another big cue up for me was when did they say that this event took place?
I don't think they did. Well, I mean, as far as the recording itself,
Yeah.
hold up. I don't think it says.
Okay, we don't have a date
No.
stamp. All right.
At the hospital. Thank you.
Not only that, when the guy was talking about going to his house to set up the turn on the cameras, I feel like the alternate or supposed alternate, the guy on the right, like shied away from the question, well, did you lock your windows and doors? Like,
Right. He didn't say yes or no. He just said, well,
no.
that's the funny thing.
Yeah.
And then
Like,
just kind of let it hang.
mm-hmm.
And there was
Yeah.
no specific information relayed about exactly what state his mother was in, just that
Right.
she was passed out cold. Maybe she saw something.
Right.
Well, how could she see something if she was inside with the doors and windows locked? She would have had to
Right.
actively go looking outside past the drapes or blinds or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that you find a lot in especially
Red
like
flag.
80s and 90s horror films. You'll get audiences screaming at the screen, don't go out there, don't
Mhm.
look. Don't you think it would be ingrained at some point in the collective human societal consciousness? Don't go outside. Don't look. There's going to be a problem.
Right. There's something lurking out there.
Like Cabin in the Woods was a fantastic film, if for no other reason than there was a level of self-awareness. The kids in that film knew, hey, there are certain rules you need to follow to survive in this kind of setting. Same for the classic Scream. The whole story the plot was centered around somebody who knew how the tropes of horror films went so adamantly, so rigidly, that he set up an entire scenario where people forgetting the rules of surviving such a setting.
Don't look, I yell at my
Yeah.
TV, Scuba.
Yeah, don't look.
Yep.
Or I think of the classic 1990s Simpsons Treehouse of Terror episode where all of the mascots and everything around town, the billboards and whatnot, come to life. Just don't look. Just don't look.
Yeah, so that's the thing though, is like the supposed alternate, the guy that the buddy, if if that's what we're gonna call him, he even said that his mom saw something and then wanted him to look at something in the hallway. So did the mom look at something in the hallway?
definitely a red flag.
Yeah. Just makes you wonder. I can barely see anything.
Right, you can barely see anything, but you can hear sort of strange ambient noise. This
Mhm.
is again calling upon some of the classic tropes of the horror genre, particularly looking at the one of the primary types of fear, one of the primary categories. This is a subject I've touched upon a number of times in essays and in a couple of videos. That there are 5 primary categories of fear, and the first and best known, sorry, it's actually number 2 on the list, but it's the best known and most often referred to category of fear, which is fear of the unknown.
Mhm.
This is a classic call to our collective subconscious and psyche that we are most terrified by not knowing the boundaries and mechanisms of what it is we're dealing with. The less you know, the less you can do to save your own skin.
Indeed.
Knowledge is power. That axiom holds true historically, not only as a species, but as a society and as individuals. As an individual human being, the more you know about a circumstance, the better equipped you are to respond to that circumstance. Not knowing what you're doing, not knowing what the circumstances are, what the enemy is, who the enemy is, where the enemy is, what it is exactly you can use to identify it and contend with it, leaves you in the most vulnerable possible position.
Indeed. Yep. In other words, sitting duck.
Quack, quack.
Oh. Motion detected at 3:31 a.m. Recording start. Is that like a shadow? Like over
I believe so.
like
I
it looks
believe
like a shed.
Yep, it's a projected shadow on the front of some kind of tool shed or secondary structure on the property. And whether and based on how the shadow is portrayed here, I would assume that the light source is coming from the left and shining on something that is blocking the light. So possibly something approaching that shed.
Now it's gone. Oh shit.
And now the door is open.
Let me in, Mark. I have a gift for you. I have a present. I have a surprise. I will not hurt.
We had a timestamp there.
It was 5:34 in the morning. Hold up.
No, not just that. Right here.
September 13th, 92.
1992. All right. Either this is an inconsistency or this is another red flag. Cesar Torres contacted Mark, letting him know he was taking his mom to the hospital, to the ER. Near the end of the conversation, he says, "Okay, I'm almost at the hospital."
Mm-hmm.
Were cell phones that prevalent in 1992
No.
for a young kid or a young man?
That's a good question.
No, they were not prevalent. So we are either dealing with somebody who comes from big time money and could afford a car phone, or a 1992 great big brick cell phone a la Michael Douglas from Wall Street, Money Talks, or this phone call should not have been able to take place. Red flag.
In other words, the alternate was able to get a hold of him in other means.
Right. You never know how.
Oof.
Guys, I will not hurt.
That's clearly it's a 0 out of 10 for me, dog.
You fucking bastard!
You need a Tic Tac, bro.
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator. If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up.
Discard of the tape immediately. What?
Yes, apparently, if you are not part of the authorities, you are to discard the tape immediately. If you are either not part of the authorities or you do not have clearance.
Guess we don't have clearance, Byron.
Badges. We don't need your stinking badges.
Yep, us and 8.9 million other people.
Right?
While at the station, a situation may occur where the local 911 dispatchers run out of operators to handle calls, so they are given to us instead. There are 3, and only 3, scenarios that you will handle with a caller. When a caller needs the police, send available personnel to the address. When the caller has a fire-related emergency, contact our neighboring fire department with the address and a brief description of the event. When the caller has a medical emergency, immediately contact the Mandela Community Hospital.
Error.
Here at the Mandela County Police Department, we thank you for viewing this instruction.
Oh God. Yep, we're on our way. Yep, be there in Yep.
Can you describe the intruder? How many eyeballs does he have? Okay, and yet, hello? Hello? All right. Got
Click.
another one.
Yeah, I don't even think the authorities know how to like handle them.
No, and clearly an alternate has had a hand in the creation of this material to be disseminated amongst the first responding community.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're trolling the people who are supposed to be trying to help.
Right. Do not speak too much. You might accidentally reveal your fear.
Nothing is worth the risk. Nothing is worth the risk. Nothing is worth the risk.
Okay. Wait a second. Didn't the same thing happen to the mom or whatever? The mom saw something and then she passed out.
Passed out, yes. One could hypothesize that this is an instance of an overwhelming adrenaline dump. This is something that it's not unheard of. It does happen, wherein people can be so terrified by an incident, by the sight or sound of something, that their mind cannot assess properly, can't quite process. And there's such an overwhelming dump of adrenaline through the system that they literally cannot remain conscious. They're literally scared stiff. Now, they're not scared to death, but they are literally scared unconscious because their brain cannot process what they're seeing. You'll notice too here in the child's illustration that the thing that he saw in the corner, he depicted it as smiling at him. So while the child is scared and is spooked out, they don't immediately attribute either a frown or any kind of demonic visage. Now, again, the child, according to what it said at the beginning, is 4 years old. So it's not like maybe he's got the artistic capacity to draw something that terrifying. Which also, by the way, a little bit strange that it took like several pages in before there was a single spelling error. Let me tell you, for a 4-year-old kid, that's pretty good grammar.
Yeah, no kidding.
But it does speak to the resilience of a child's mind to not immediately impose a negative or predatory presumption of nature onto this unknown entity. And it would not be outside the bounds, I would believe, for a creature of this sort to not know exactly how to contend with a child, particularly if children are not their primary targets or victims.
Even that's kind of unknown.
Right, it's up in the air. It's an uncertain thing. But we have seen this throughout horror mythology and stories and narratives in cinema, in television, and in books and short stories, that oftentimes younger children are not viewed as potential victims. You see this in the Friday the 13th series of films, in a couple of the later entries when Jason comes across, I forget, it was either part 7 or part 8, where he comes across a room in which there are, or a cabin in which there are several kids, like preteens, and they're terrified of him, but he just kind of scans the room, looks at them, turns around, and leaves. He does not bring any harm to them because they are young children. There is an unspoken quality of innocence. They are not responsible for anything that happened to him, but they also don't represent those who are responsible for what happened to him. Much the same with the Nightmare on Elm Street series of films. Who did Freddy go after? He says in part, I think it's part 1 or part 3, that he's going after the children of the people of Elm Street who killed him. But he doesn't go after young children. He's going after adolescents. He's going after pubescent people who are in the process of no longer being innocent and moving into that near adult phase of life. There's an almost unspoken, multicultural understanding that children are innocent, that you cannot target them for extermination or predatory activity until they reach a certain age of majority or of victimization. One of the best known exceptions to this is Stephen King's It.
Yep.
But even the Losers Club, all of those kids were on the cusp of puberty. They were entering the first kind of introductory steps into adolescence. He didn't go after them until that point, with the exception of little Georgie. Now,
oh, God.
yes. He went after little Georgie, who was an innocent child, which should give you some degree of scale that whatever Pennywise was, it was willing to go after a small child. Understanding the broad scope of horror genre fiction out there and mythology, anything willing to go after the most innocent of human beings is an absolute terror. It's what unnerves us so much more about creatures like Pennywise, is the fact that the innocence of the target doesn't matter. It is a living thing and therefore is a viable target. And Scuba brings up Michael Myers in the Halloween series.
Yep.
Myers doesn't go after little kids. He just doesn't. Now, that doesn't make these creatures any less monstrous or horrific or guilty of being absolute demonic entities. But it does give us some kind of understanding that there may be some kind of guiding principle for many of these monsters.
Like a code.
Right, but that's just a hypothesis on my end, because not every storyteller includes that kind of line they won't cross in their monsters. I mean, you look at another example, like from comic books, fucking Doomsday smashed the shit out of like a 7 or 8 year old boy who he'd reached up into a tree to save this kid's cat and handed to him. And the kid was like, "Whoa, you're Doomsday. And you killed Superman." And Doomsday's like, "Yes, I did." And then he smashes the fucking kid into the ground, kills him and the cat. And he goes, "Curious. I feel no satisfaction from your destruction. I will ponder this." But anyway, back to our source material.
I think that's him. I think that's our guy. Or whatever it is. And that's so that was volume 1 of the Mandela Catalogue. Disclaimer, we are not trying to sugarcoat these creatures. Definitely.
No, we would not in any way, shape, or form. So
I don't think it'd be wise.
No, definitely not a good idea to be like, you know what? If you need a
You had a
babysitter,
point.
just contact Mr. Voorhees. He can look after your darling little 5-year-old. No, he can't. Jason himself was a mentally challenged child when he died. You think he can look after your kid? No, anyway.
Right.
Although for damn sure he's not going to let anyone try to do any harm to your little kiddo. You know, when you're shopping around for monster babysitters, bear in mind you have options. Just don't contact anyone from the Cthulhu area, section of the phone book, because they don't care how old your kid is. They'll eat them or turn them into unimaginable, unspeakable horrors from the 17th dimension. Doppelgangers. When we look historically at various cultural mythologies, doppelgangers hold a major position of influence in Germanic lore, in Norse mythology, in certain Fae.
Or in Dune, they were called face dancers.
Yup. So the idea of a duplicate, a copy, a clone, an evil twin. For goodness sakes, Gene Roddenberry had one of the most timeless episodes of television with Star Trek, the original series, with the mustachioed James T. Kirk and crew, wherein the doppelgangers had an obvious physical tell, given the restrictions that you had to work with in Hollywood back at the time. Yeah, and it's exactly. See, Scuba, that's another thing you got to remember is if you hire Jason to watch your kids, he's got to have some place to put his mother's head. Because let's not forget, he likes to keep his keepsakes around, and Mother does know best, apparently, even when she's been long dead. But doppelgangers are a weird kind of fusion of two of the primary category types of fear. They're a fusion of fear of the self and fear of the other. That sort of unknown territory of, well, I know what I am capable of and where my borderline is. Across this line, I will not step. But what if there's something out there that looks and behaves and acts and talks very similar to me, but is from some other dimension of reality and existence? And its own myth or its own moral and ethical compass is completely different. What am I capable of at my worst? Because here is something that looks and sounds and smells and acts a lot like me. If it does X, does that mean I am capable of X? That is the fear of the self. Where the fusion meets fear of the other or the unknown is, well, that's not me. I can tell that's not me because I am me. It's very demonstrable. Right. I'm here. That thing with the weird grin that stretches all the way back to its earlobe is not me, but it looks a lot like me.
So it's trying to be me.
Right. It's a very weird kind of, they want to supplant us.
Don't mind me. I'm just kind of doing some DoorDash here.
No worries. In Fae and Celtic mythology, we've also got the idea of doppelgangers, although they did not classically call them that. They called them mirror selves. Mirror selves, playing on much of the established folklore in Celtic mythology surrounding mirrors as a whole. Mirrors play a major source of mythological tension and wonderment in various other mediums and cultures. It's where we get the idea of, taking a deep look at yourself and trying to figure out if there's something about you that you didn't notice before. And could that be playing on the production or creation of the doppelganger? Particularly in Germanic lore, the doppelganger is most readily identified as not the original because of some kind of extrapolation or heavy emphasis on a small physical detail of the original that is made more pronounced, whether it be like the presence of freckles or a mole or acne, something that we might typically overlook about ourselves or those who are closest to us, but for some reason it becomes slightly more pronounced in the doppelganger. For instance, you could have, let's say, I see my buddy Cortex here, and I take note of the way that he keeps his beard trimmed and whatnot, and there's a knock on my door one day, and it looks like Cortex, except the beard drags all the way down to his fucking waist. It's similar, but there's an exaggerated component of his physical nature that tells me as a red flag, this is not Cortex showing up at your door. For one, look at the beard. For two, doesn't he work a regular job? When would he have the time to drive all the fuck the way to Minnesota? So a couple of red flags. And then red flag number 3, claws are coming out of his fingertips and he's trying to rip my face off of my head. Yeah, probably not a good sign.
outstretched arms.
And I've come for you now. You know, not great.
I was gonna add like the Mandela Catalog. They actually have a game where it's like a kind of like a or what was it, Five Nights at Freddy's kind of style game, like the cameras.
Oh, okay.
And it's like, you know, you're monitoring like the house and the different rooms, and you have like sound increases and, you know, stuff like that. And you have to like dispose of the entities. You have to identify what they are, and like a lot of the different alternates, like their bodies are all mangled and weird. And
Right, like the presenter said at the top of the video,
yeah,
there will be some kind of biological impossibility which will easily identify them as an alternate. Um, a lot of this also makes me think of, or think back to, another classic example of doppelgangers and mirror selves, and that would be looking at the wonderfully depicted and written The Unpleasant Profession of Jonathan Hoag by Robert A. Heinlein. This is a classic dark fantasy speculative fiction novel. I would highly recommend. If you are able to grab yourself a copy of this, go out and do so.
here's an example. Nope. Kind of.
Right, there's something that is, you know, obviously detrimental, like someone approaching you, walking into your home on their head. You know, if their hair moves like cilia to move them from one part of your home to the next, then you're probably dealing with an alternate.
Yep.
If no matter how many flashlights or high power intensity beams of light you flash on them, if half their face remains in shadow somehow, you may be an alternate.
Or like
You know.
the TV here.
Yeah.
Or case in point, the just like this like little dresser. You got eyeball at the bottom right leg.
You know, if you've got body parts that look like they're in a non-Euclidean formation, you might be an alternate. If
Jeff
you have the
Foxworthy.
uncontrollable desire to eat human flesh, you might be an alternate.
Yep. What point of view you upset your roommate? Alternate Gabriel. Oh God. Yeah, there's a lot of different art that I'm looking at right now of like alternates, and like you said, if you can flash a light onto them and you can't even get like the first depiction of them, there's a good chance you might want to run the fuck away.
Right.
Like fast, far, and quick. Well, I said fast and quick, but point is get away.
Right. If you feel the uncontrollable urge to eat the face off of another human being, you might be an alternate.
Just like this right here.
Yeah, there's something not quite right there. Be right back and hit the loo.
Yep, you're good. Cortex, but ZZ Top. Yep. Yeah, I don't know if I could ever grow my beard out like that. Oh God, that is a very, very like cryptic fucking picture if I've ever seen one. Look at this. Look at that. I'm good. Actually, I'm gonna surprise Byron with that. um, yeah. Hey, Byron, you want to see your new buddy?
Sure.
All right, hold up. There you go.
Hey man, you got some? Are you holding? Like
They're
I've
so
met people.
cryptic.
I've met people who look like this in my life, and 9 times out of 10, they are crackheads.
That's actually scary looking. That's just Paul.
Oh, that's Paul. He's the local meth head. Don't worry about him. He's gonna ask you for a few quid for bus fare, but don't believe it. He just needs to score. Part of what makes these creatures and these depictions intriguing is that the majority of the distortions that really stand out to us,
There you go.
look at where the distortion primarily is. It's in the face. When we look at our fellow human beings, when we are holding dialogue, when we are getting our first impressions of people, there's often this kind of stereotype assumption that with men, the first thing they look for in a woman is they look at their chest or look at their rump. That's not biologically or neurochemically the first thing we look at. The first thing we look at when we see another human being, we look at their face. We are looking for unspoken cues that will tell us about affect, that will tell us about mood, that will tell us about intention, and that will tell us about injury. When you consider the first thing that you notice about somebody, if it's something that is off, let's say you had 2 people standing next to each other. One of them was clearly missing an arm. The person standing next to them has a giant gash scar across their right cheek. Most people, their eyes will be drawn to the scar on the cheek. Why is that? It's because the face is the first thing we use to identify unspoken markers of intent, similarity. Are they in group? Are they part of our tribe? It's a map of what can I expect from this person.
That is a
Can
correct
I
depiction of my
hold
morning
dialogue?
face.
Yeah.
By the way, here's this game I was talking about. It's called Alternate Watch. This is like the different like entities. That's like a skin suit being worn. Like he'll even see like a face at the door here. It's like upside down. I don't know if you could tell, but if you look at her face, it's kind of stretched out there. Ew, that is so disgusting.
Just a little bit.
The whole body's like all stretched out.
There's a nice couple of little bits of in-universe lore kind of hinted at too, with the picture of Mark there in that bedroom.
Yep. If you look back, you look at the fridge. Hold on. If you look at the fridge. Oh. Right there.
Yep, there's the kid's drawing. And then I fell asleep.
And then like there's this picture in the back right here that's been kind of shown. Oh, she looks like she's ready to bake some cookies. Look at her.
Who's up for brownies?
This makes me feel some type of way.
Now, part of what makes the creatures from the Mandela Catalogue obviously different from some of the other creatures that we've looked at in previous deep dives from the SCP Foundation and from the back rooms is that we are not dealing with creatures that are quite so clearly monstrous. They're closer to human beings in presentation. And that could, Scuba, that could very well be a key component in what's making you feel so affected.
Mm-hmm.
When we can identify with, on a personal human level, when we can identify more closely to the creature or the entity that is clearly not human because of some distortion of humanity, it tends to hit closer to home.
Mm-hmm.
We feel filthy or corrupted. Some kind of filthiness is associated in our minds with these entities from the Mandela Catalogue because there's such a proximity to what is human. It strikes us as a mockery of what
the
it
orangutan
is.
arms. Yeah.
Honey, I can't reach the top shelf. I can.
I just realized it wasn't just that picture, it's the other picture too.
Oh yeah, with the stairs.
Yep.
So you see, you've got some in-universe references here in this game that they're subtle.
She's making her brownies with her long arms.
Yep. Just add a little cinnamon. It's a good thing. Yeah, you know, you see, that's a woman who wants your baby in her belly.
He's got no mouth.
And he must scream. That's another literary reference, for those of you wondering, to Harlan Ellison's famous short story.
And she's got no face.
Yeah. You say that's not just
that one freaks me out a lot, though, right there.
I cannot imagine what your first reaction was to the nurses in Silent Hill 2, then.
Oh, man. Well, look at this one. It's got a long neck and no face but a nose.
Yeah, right out there outside the window.
That one's just taking a shower while staring through the mirror.
Derp a derp.
I just realized, not the person that's dead, of course, but if you look at the two other portraits, like the two pictures, those were also the similarity. Yeah, the doppelgangers.
I didn't notice that before.
Yeah. Like the examples.
Mhm. Tired eyes, try Visine. Sorry.
Oh boy. What would you call that? Like where something is purely dark, there's no light that you can emit to it or reflect on it. Like what is that called?
Well, it depends on what source of lore you're looking at. I'm sure that the folks at the Mandela Catalogue have their own term for it. The one that closest comes to mind for me would be from Vodun mythology, which would refer to it simply as a shade man.
Shade man.
Yes.
Also,
Not to be confused with a shadow man. That's a completely different thing.
I don't know if you pay attention here, but in the mirror,
The reflection, the
yeah, the reflections are different. Yeah,
which lends itself once again to a reference made to what exactly is the nature of mirrors.
Scuba's a fucking demon, also known as the Shadow Man sometimes.
This is where we have to come into differentiation, at least insofar as Vodun mythology and culture is concerned. The difference between a shade man, a shadow, or a shadow man. In Vodun culture and mythology, a shadow man is a Vodun priest who is able to personify the powers and essence of one of the lesser Loa spirits in order to perform tasks and duties on behalf of the greater Loa gods and goddesses to protect humanity from negative influences and hoodoo spirits, as opposed to a shade man or a shade or a shadow, which are demonic entities cast forth by the unpleasant hoodoo spirits and gods. Small differentiation in terminology, vast differentiation in purpose and drive.
When you're sitting there saying hoodoo and all that, I'm thinking of Sam B from Dead Island. Hoodoo you voodoo, bitch.
Which is a great line because it simultaneously confuses and insults both cultures.
Yeah. This one doesn't even have arms or legs. It's just a pillar.
Yep.
Man, that would be fucking creepy. That's cryptic. Whoa. See the picture change?
Yep.
Looking there. Almost looks like Scream a little bit. And it's back there. It's in the mirror. Yep. So that's the game. It's like a Five Nights at Freddy's sort of game. It's I haven't played it personally, but it looked alright.
Wait.
There are other volumes of the Mandela Catalogue. Do you want to get into that another day, or do you want to continue?
We'll go ahead and push that to the next installment, brother.
All right. Also, there's another video that I want to watch, but I want to put that off to another day. It's a horror short film, which is another thing I also want to get into. There's just quite a few of those out there. The one I'm talking about in particular it's called The Other Side of the Box.
Never heard of it, but definitely interest.
I'm kind of curious, like, do I want to put that into this one, like into the Mandela Catalog, or do I want to make that its own video? I don't know yet. It's like a 15-minute video, though.
The Other Side of the Box?
Yeah.
I'll check that out. Because, I do tend to, it seems, do my best work in interaction here when I have some familiarity with the topic matter ahead of time, so I can do some prep. I am the mythological Batman. I do best with prep.
Yeah.
Or Frank Castle. Give that man enough time, he'll blow up anything.
Pretty much. Oh, yeah, there's another one. It's called The Pleasant Inn by David Romero 3 years ago.
Where are these films available?
On YouTube.
Okay, these are both right on YouTube.
Yep.
I will say that back in the day, in the early days, especially of YouTube, it was a great place for independent creators to put together art projects of these sorts and sort of start to work out their professional skills and talents to show the world at large that creativity is not dead. It's just not got the money behind it that it possibly deserves or needs to become a great production.
Yeah.
Thank you, Scuba.
And we appreciate you as well.
Always enjoy that. So taking a look at my time check here, running pretty short on time. Are there any other questions or things that we wanted to get into briefly here before we do a kind of a wrap up?
I'm not sure. What would you want to? maybe talk about what we're going to do next.
Well, I assume that we're going to be taking a look into. You said there are more volumes in the Mandela Catalogue. That we would be taking a look at Volume 2 and any of the extraneous kind of material that is attached to the Mandela Catalogue. Perhaps do what I'm thinking is maybe a little bit of a compare and contrast between this project and what we initially saw in the back rooms with Kane Pixels. Because we've obviously got two very talented young storytellers here who decided to create their own original dark fantasy / horror fiction material and to present it to the world through YouTube as independent creators. Maybe talk a little bit about the differences in technique from one versus the other, how analog horror may be different from composite independent horror or dark fantasy, and the different techniques utilized from one storyteller versus the other. There's definitely the element of fear of the unknown, which is utilized and capitalized by both of these storytellers to great effect. But there are definitely stylistic differences between the two materials.
Yeah. So we got the Mandela Catalogue. We've got obviously like the back rooms, SCP Foundation. I know we were touching upon like oh, never mind. I was tripping out for a second. I was like, is that really gonna be a thing on Netflix?
What's that?
Oh, the back rooms. I was hoping not.
Yeah, because you know they would fucking ruin it.
They really would too.
That's a whole other thing, and allow me to grumble on about that just for a few minutes. This is one of the unfortunate things when I love or deeply appreciate independent material, and I get so excited when I hear about or read about it getting picked up for production by a larger outfit, like something like Netflix or Paramount Pictures or Universal Studios. I get excited because I'm like, oh yes, finally this material is going to get the love and appreciation it deserves. And what happens almost without fail? These big studios get their grubby, greasy, greedy little fingers on this wonderful material, this extremely well-crafted lore, and they proceed to bend it over a wooden barrel and have their way with it because they get 6 or 7 different product and analysts and market researchers in the room and say, we're going to dip our fingers in here and adjust this and change that and use this technique that's really popular right now, and we think that's what's going to get more money. Assholes, what brought attention to the material in the first place? The quality of the lore and the storytelling. Don't worry about injecting your own personal messaging or ideology to screw it into and fit it somehow within the confines.
Like Resident Evil.
Thank you. Yes, prime example of what the fuck were you thinking? Don't tamper with it. Don't stick your great big gob where it doesn't belong in this material. Look, I can appreciate a good lasagna, but you know it's not a good idea is sprinkling gummy bears in the middle fucking layer, all right? Just because you get a hold of your grandmother's recipe doesn't mean you should doctor it up for a modern audience by sprinkling gummy bears in it. Oh, people love gummy bears. They want gummy bears. All of our market research says that people love and want gummy bears in their food. We'll sprinkle it into grandma's lasagna. You take one bite and go, bleh! That's not what you do. Follow grandma's recipe. For God's sakes, there's a reason why everybody's happy when grandma shows up with that tinfoil covered pan. Why? Because they know what they're getting is great. Don't mess with it.
Yeah. Some things are just best left alone. Like, you don't need to go beyond and above all else adding, certain spins to it. Like, it's just such a bad idea.
You don't need to mess with the formula. Here's the thing. if you have a bridge, let's say you're building a bridge, you've got an effective blueprint for how to build a bridge. It works. It's solid. It's repeatable. It's demonstrably sound. You don't mess with the blueprint and then have 5,800 people drop off into the river that the next bridge is supposed to be spanning and going over. You had a design that worked. Don't muck it up.
That's right.
Hey, you know what would make this bridge really great? If we added a base layer of marshmallow.
Literally.
Tom, are you stupid? No, I own stock in marshmallow. Can we kill Tom? Are we allowed to kill Tom? What? We are? When did this happen? Okay. Oh, okay. Tom, I'm going to give you a 5-second head start.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, what was it? You had the Resident Evil series. It was like, what? You had the series, and then you had Welcome to Raccoon City. Now, I'll admit, the movie itself had some good, like, visuals, I would say, but when you start trying to take things and trying to, like, basically race swap, like, actor or roles and, like, characters, and then you try to cram everything into one movie, it's such a recipe for disaster. Because, like, the movie, I forget the title of it. I think it was Welcome to Raccoon City. But they were trying to take the first game and the second game and trying to cram them into one.
Right, because I think they were doing that because in the actual lore, in the canon of the lore from Capcom, those events were taking place simultaneously. But here's the thing, I care a lot less about the race swapping thing. That doesn't matter so much to me. I don't care. It's when you make that the focus of the character or the story that I have an issue. I don't give a shit if your primary protagonist is a strong, independent woman, to quote me from the quartering. Okay, I don't care if she muff dives every Thursday night into a different woman. I don't give a shit. But if that is the only thing that you present to us as part of what makes this individual who they are, then they're not very interesting.
No.
I'm sorry. If the most interesting thing about the character you're telling this story centered upon is who they sleep with, they're not very interesting, because I could care less. When you've got a character who's supposed to be a kick-ass zombie executing slayer of all things demonic and evil and monstrous, I want to see, can they handle a weapon? How effectively can they handle that weapon? Do they use proper room sweeping or room clearing tactics? Are they capable in the field? Do they make stupid decisions, or do they make tactically sound decisions? That's what matters. I don't care who they decide to press their tongue up against.
I mean, that's
Doesn't
a fair
matter.
point. I get what you're saying, but sometimes it does matter when it comes down to it, because you got to think about it. When they did the series and they casted, what was it? What was the guy that they casted with Wesker? I'm trying to think now. Lance Reddick. They casted Lance Reddick as Wesker.
Okay, I'm only going to defend that decision because I fucking love Lance Reddick.
I love Lance Reddick too. I do too.
God rest his soul. But
I love Lance Reddick too. But he's not Wesker.
No, he's not. They should have just written a new antagonist for him to be, because Lance Reddick was an amazing,
he did an amazing job, but he was not Wesker.
No, he's not Albert Wesker. Give him a different name. Give him a different background. I don't care. If you've got Lance Reddick signed on,
I loved his
agreeing-
character though.
and agreeing to do that film or that project, just give him a different backstory because the man will make that character come to life. He
Mhm.
was a consummate professional and a fantastic talent.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't so much care afterward because, like, I loved watching him work, but the whole time I'm like, he's not Wesker. Sorry, but he's not Wesker.
No.
Wesker never cared about the world. He wanted it to burn.
Albert Wesker was a nihilist. He was a megalomaniacal nihilist who wanted to watch the world burn.
Mhm.
Period.
Yep.
His motivation was, I enjoy chaos and destruction and death. I want to see everything wiped off the face of the planet. End of story. It's a simplistic motivation. Sometimes you don't need your villain to be complex.
No.
A
He's
monster
just the bad guy.
is a monster. And sometimes when the monster is very simple, it works best.
Everybody was calling Lance Reddick Blade. When he played like they had the actual Wesker, and then supposedly I think he died. Like, cause he was cloned in the show.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Anywho, you're breaking up a lot here, brother. Is there, or is that on my end?
Must have been my fan that was probably blowing the microphone by accident. Am I good?
Oh, the audio is good, but the video feed continues to be a little choppy.
Oh, I have no idea then.
Not sure. But anywho,
I was just gonna show a quick example, and then I'm probably gonna cut it.
All right, brother.
We're okay. Yeah, here we go. Oh. There you go. That's how he looked in the show. There's Wesley Snipes' blade.
Holy shit. That's kind of startling how similar a look that is.
Yeah.
You have to almost wonder if someone used that on purpose.
I almost wondered.
Like was this inspiration for the look? And if so, bravo. It was pretty close in terms of similarity of look. If that's what you were going for, you did it great. If it's
Here's
not
a quick scene real quick. Whoever was in the show.
Birds! Bert! A shrimp curry burrito, really? That smell is never going away.
Albert, he can't hear you. Bro, chill.
Clean up your mess.
In a minute. I'll do it. Albie, he has to learn.
Here he comes. I can't. I can't.
The mind machine interface is glitching.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
There is only one scene in all of Resident Evil lore that is
Where are we? Just
cheesier
now.
than this moment.
You'll have it tomorrow.
I'm sorry, but the hair does not do him justice at all.
No.
It's so off.
It's a block on top of his head.
Today.
Albert Wesker, this is an unauthorized use of umbrella property. Put your hands up. Do it now.
Oh. Give me 1 second, I'll be
Albert,
right
get out
back.
of here. No!
What are you doing?
Destroy the evidence.
Yeah. I gotta tell you, folks, it's hard for me to grapple in my mind with the fact that some of the most fantastically talented actors and actresses in our culture historically have had such terrible things, such terrible shows or movies be the very last thing that they were known for before they passed away. And I think this entry for Lance Reddick comes in at almost as bad as Raul Julia being M. Bison in the Street Fighter film as a final performance. Just such a shame because you have such beautifully crafted actors who they could have gone on and done something so fantastic if they were granted another chance. But instead, this was the last thing they got to work on. And it's a crying shame.
My apologies, Byron. My food literally just showed up.
No worries, brother.
But on that note, everybody, I think we're gonna hop off here. I know Byron's time's kind of short, but
Yeah,
it's definitely a good time. Talking about the Mandela Catalogue. So, do you think Volume 2 will be in the works? Like in
yeah,
order?
I think we should go ahead and move on to Volume 2 for next time.
Okay.
We'll get worked out over the next week what our next bit of marching orders will be here for the deep dives.
Okay. Sounds good to me, man.
So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Deep Dives with your hosts, Cortex and ByronOfSidius. We thank you for stopping in, for taking the time to share your appreciation for the bizarre, the weird, and the strange with us. And we do look forward to having you with us again next time.
Until then, guys, we're out here. Much love, everybody. Oh, 1 second. All right, we're out here. Much love, everybody.